Kate, I'm so excited to see you today. Thank you so much for talking with me.
Of course, it's so good to see you again.
So good to see you. I can't wait to catch up with you. So let's talk a little bit. You were part of my dream career formula coaching
Yeah.
sessions. It was just so great. That group was so great. Let's talk about that. How did it feel to be in a group coaching thing and talk about your career dreams? How did that work for you?
I mean, I've told you this before, but I felt like it was therapy, but for professional stuff, I feel like I'm in regular therapy, but I feel like this pushed it to the next level of really addressing like what works for me and what doesn't and what I've been doing in the past that I'm really passionate about and excited about and what I wanted to shift moving forward.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about that shift. So when you came on, if you could talk to me a little bit, where were you at? You kind of fell into jobs. There was a sense of really not knowing who you are. Let's talk a little bit about that. What did that feel
Yeah.
like?
I mean, I had only had 2 jobs my whole life. Both of them I'd been with for 7 years, ironically. I keep joking about the 7-year itch. And both of them, yeah, kind of like found me. And I ended up staying with them both past when I was happy. And I think that's something that is not common actually with my generation. Like people bop around to a lot of different jobs, but I remember always thinking that seemed chaotic. But in reality, it was people moving on to something different when they weren't happy and wanted to do something different. And I feel like that's something that I'm now looking at and realizing is healthy. And it also helps you move through your career and make bigger jumps. I mean, if you move to different positions with some frequency. Um, yeah, and so I'd worked for a fashion designer and for a chef. And I was kind of like, I don't really want to do either one of those things. And I'm trying to figure out what my skill set is best applied to and what I'm going to be the most happy with. And I forget, like, I feel like I started the journey being like, I want to do PR. And by the end of it, I was like, wow, I actually think I'm really good at production and like putting pieces of a puzzle together and wearing multiple hats and knowing how to manage people and logistics and stuff like that is really my strong suit. Um, and so that's where I am now. I'm now running a film, TV, photo shoot location where I'm helping clients come in and like asking them what they need and trying to organize because we have 5 stages, like how many people we can have in at once. And it's a lot of like logistics, but it's also in the
Sure.
arts. Yeah, which makes me really happy, but, yeah, it's not working for a crazy artist, so that's also great. It's like a real business, so, yeah, it feels like it's like a perfect mix of all the things, which I got because of your amazing coaching class.
Oh, Kate, that's so sweet. I wanted, you brought up some really good points right now. So, what was it in the 7 years that you were with both of those jobs and you weren't happy? Was it just feeling stuck? Was it feeling lost? Was it just feeling like I don't even know where to go from here? What?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny, like, boundaries is a word that we all hear, but it's a lot harder to actually realize and put it into action. And I ended up with 0 boundaries with both of my past bosses, and it was just it's hard to set them after you don't have them in place.
Correct.
So I think that's again, like starting this new chapter has been really beautiful because I'm like, these are the things I'm willing to do. These are the things I'm not willing to do, and you have to go in with that at the beginning because it's really hard to do it 5 years in.
And how did you come to find out now that you need to set boundaries and all of that kind of stuff? Was that through the class or, with our many discussions, or where did you come up? Because you seem to have a real clear vision now of who Kate is going into this job. Because in a sense, what I'm hearing from you too is you chose this job. You actually went after something instead of somebody just going, "Hey, come join me." How did you transition that?
Well, I think age is just one thing, like after you've been through a certain amount of experiences, you're like, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore. Um,
True.
and 2 years of honestly having a lot more time to reflect and think about things because of the pandemic. And then you're coaching class is kind of this perfect little cherry on top of the sundae that kind of brought it all together for me. I was like, oh, I can ask for exactly what I want. I can bring exactly what I'm able to bring to the table and then call it a day at that. And that's enough.
Oh, I love that. So you were telling me a little bit about how you went and got this job on LinkedIn, and now they have a video thing. Tell
Yeah.
me how you incorporated some of those great stories that you would come up with in the class. How did you incorporate that into a video thing, which, by the way, is very brave?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing interviews or, informationals, interviews, whatever, talking with a lot of people. And so I'd really like nailed down and gotten my stories very like in my body and were able to tell them really naturally, I thought. But by the time I was like looking on LinkedIn and I saw this thing that was like, can you answer these 5 questions in a video message? And I was like, oh my God, I feel like such an idiot doing this, like sitting by myself in my apartment. But I was like, okay, let me, and I know good answers to all these questions that I think are, captivating and interesting for people to hear. And yeah, I sent them in and I heard back from them the next day. They were like, we'd love to have you come in person for an interview. And I got hired like a week later. So yeah.
Oh, Kate, I love that. Were they similar to the questions that we go over in the group coaching thing? Like, tell me a little bit about yourself. What are your strengths? Were they those kinds of questions that you knew the stories for?
And I do think the story thing is so impactful because again, like I've interviewed people and I've heard 40 people in 2 days tell me like, I'm a good multitasker. I'm a good this, I'm a good that. And you're like, great. I've heard that from 30 other people. And looking at your resume, I can't tell whether or not you are good at that or not until I hire you. And then maybe it's going to be a nightmare. Maybe you really can do all the things you said you're able to do. But putting it in the format of a story, I think does like really shift it because you're telling a, an experience where you like really were able to do those things
Yeah.
so that it's like proving that you are a good multitasker or whatever it is, whatever your strengths are. It's like this is an example of me really doing that. And so
Oh,
I think it's like just it's a lot more, yeah, I think it just has like a bigger impact than saying I'm good at this, I'm good at that,
and did
or these are my weaknesses, or whatever, like all the classic questions.
exactly, that you were able to tell in a story. And so when you were looking at the camera, did you just kind of flow into your story and almost a little bit maybe excited to even share those stories, as awkward as it seemed? But once you got to the story, it was like you could be speaking to a brick wall and you'd just be happy you're telling your story.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of had to like revert back to some like acting stuff and be like, pretend that there's a person in front of you and like, actually like talking to a human being rather than, I don't know, because it's like, it's a weird thing to do. But I just like picked a person in my head that I was talking to and did it to them.
So perfect.
Yeah.
When we were in the group coaching thing, all of you really seemed to have come together. Tell me how that experience was for you with everybody.
Yeah, well, I think it's funny because I've done a lot of different coaching things throughout my life and classes. And I think the size of the class honestly was like the biggest thing
You
for me was that it was only 4 or 5 of us.
Yeah.
And so we all got like really personal and like, I mean, we like cried and like, like stuff happened in that class, over those 6 or 8 weeks. Like we all got to know some like real stuff about each other, which was, your source of income is a really big part of your identity. And
Mm,
I think like this gets into big stuff. And so I think like doing it in a big format with 100 people is like a very different thing than doing it with like 4 other human beings. You really get to know like what their stuff is that they're coming with and like things like hurdles they're overcoming. And like it felt very like we were all, because it was so small, we all felt like we were going on this like journey together and like ebbs and flows and like figuring things out amongst ourselves
yeah.
along with you, which was really beautiful.
That's so great. Because you're like mirrors of each other. It's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm kinda like that, and I'm kinda like that," and that's wonderful. I'm so happy for you, and, when you talk about this new job that you by the way, I just wanna go back a little bit. So I know I opened some doors for you. How did that work for you? Because I heard some great feedback, by the way.
Yeah, I think it went really well. I think again, it was like I was initially thinking I would be freelancing, and I think the doors you opened for me were great for that. And then I kind of quickly realized that that was going to be a little anxiety producing for me, and just where I'm at in my life right now isn't the right thing for me at the moment.
Yep.
But they were great connections, and I think people who I would love to work with, and seemed like they wanted to work with me. It was just like, I don't know if I can do project to project right now where I'm at in my life. And that was totally, fine that that's all they were able to do with me. But I was like, I kind of want to get something that's like, a salaried full-time thing for right now. And then I can kind of circle back with these people and maybe do some more of those kind of like smaller projects.
Absolutely. And what I love too is what you're going to be doing in the program. We talked about your strengths with regard to your organization. Seems like you're taking the best of your last two jobs and combined it into this particular career that you've chosen. And the production and everything that you had talked about. I'm
Yeah.
so proud of you for that. How does that feel for you, and being able to really say to yourself, I took the best of everything, created the story around it, and now I know I'm good at that? Because we were talking about PR. Let's talk about some of the things we kind of threw around and what made you decide on this.
Well, I think it's like, you're kind of told from a young age, like, pick something that's stable, pick something that, like, you have a pathway towards and, like, will always be there. And I remember, I started working in PR when I was like in college, and that's what I went to college for. And I'm like, well, yeah, like, I can totally do it, no problem. But, like, does it get me excited to get out of bed in the morning? And I was like, no, really, And so I think that is like the realization. And it's like, I think a lot of people go through their lives and they're like, well, this is what I went to college for, and I've been doing it for 15 years. And like, I know I can get employed through this. So, like, I'm just going to stick with that. But they're miserable. And it's
Mhm.
like, I took this course to not do that, you know? Like, I could have gotten hired at a PR agency and like hated my life, and I would have been fine, I guess. But, like, I'm like, I wanted to do something that I was like excited about, and like actually figuring out what would be exciting, I think was like actually the biggest part of it. I didn't know until I got like over halfway through the course. Like, oh, I really like production. I hadn't even thought about that before. Okay.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, you seem to have, you're right, midway through, decided like, wow, all these things we're talking about when we go through those questions, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What do you want to do 5 years from now? Halfway through, it kind of a light bulb did, I saw in you go off, where this is what I'd love to do and I'm good at it. So it kind of came together, you know?
Right.
And we talked about production and things like that. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
What other things do you feel you walked away knowing about yourself now? Because I can honestly, Kate, I'm looking at you and I see the confidence. And I mean, obviously, it's one thing to feel good that you got a great job that you're going to love and be like killer at. But I'm looking at you and there's something that shifted. Can you tell me?
Yeah, I think like self-worth, I think like a lot of times we put all of our eggs in one basket with that. And I think it's a very common, especially in like American culture, to have all of that be in work. It's like, if I got a promotion this year, then like I'm good. And I'm like, the cup overfloweth of like my, self-worth and confidence. But it's like, I feel like I did that for so long and I wasn't being met with respect or, whatever at work. And it felt really frustrating. And so I think I just started to kind of spread it out a little bit more and be like, I know exactly what I'm bringing at work. And I know that I'm kicking butt and doing a really good job. If other people don't recognize that, like, that's kind of on them.
That's right.
And I feel like that's like the shift that happened halfway through too the course, that I was like, oh, I've been like working my butt off for 15 years and I've brought a lot to the table. And it's just like, if people aren't recognizing it that I work with, then like I have to move on to somewhere that does. It's pretty simple.
Wow, that's an amazing realization. I can only imagine looking at you right now that when you were in the interview, when they asked you to come in, what do you think shifted for you in that particular interview when you were looking at them like straight on?
Mm. Well, number 1, it's an all women run company, so I feel like that's a huge shift that there's not like a male dominating energy, which I think just does shift things a lot. When all of your bosses are women. Um, I think that it just felt like a tribe that I wanted to be a part of, and like they wanted me to be a part of it. And it was just really exciting, it didn't feel, it felt professional, but it didn't feel like rigid
Yeah.
in a way that it was really exciting. I'm like, oh, this is like professional and has boundaries, and I know exactly what's expected of me, but it's also like very fun and like, women, empowering, and like I'll have all women bosses, which is really exciting and cool,
And we
So
talked a
that
lot
was,
about that in
yeah,
the about finding your tribe, finding your community, something after work where it's like, "Hey, let's go grab a drink," you know? "Let's hang out."
yeah, it's like I want to hang out with all these people and they want to hang out with me, which I haven't, had in a while, that I'm like, I actually really like everyone that I work with.
That's so amazing.
Yeah.
I am so happy for you. Is there any other things you'd like to say about what your experience was and how you feel like you've changed or you just seems so amazing?
I just feel like you help like crystallize like the nuggets that you want to bring to people, because I think everyone knows like deep down what they're good at and what they're, able to bring to the table, but being able to like wrap it up and package it in like a nice little thing that you can like hand to somebody is the hard part.
Wow, but look at the gift that you gave your new job.
Yeah, which is like, but that's like so fun to be able to be like, look, I got a nugget. It's all ready and it's packaged up and here you go. Like, it's so much easier than having to like, I don't know, because it can be so anxiety producing, like trying to answer questions and like sell yourself to someone, Um, and so when you have like all of these like things like ready to rock and roll, it makes it a lot less anxiety producing. You're like, yeah, I got all my stuff. I have the answers to all of this.
Oh, God, I love it. Kate, I can't thank you enough for coming on today. It's always great to see you. I really miss you guys.
Of course. Thank you. It's been so much fun.
I know, this was, like, so much fun.